Here we go. Hi everyone, Sailor Moon here, Serena here, Tuxedo Mask, Evening Wear Hi, Darian here, and today we're going to talk about, Christendom and Sailor Moon one more time, or just talk about worship and Sailor Moon altogether, because I know there's going to be some folks in a Sailor Moon followership who don't think worship has anything to do with Sailor Moon, or doesn't know that there is worship in Sailor Moon. Now, the two worships that come up in Sailor Moon, and I would guess there would be sundriest worships in Sailor Moon, which there are over the world, but two of them are shown, Christendom and Shintoism. Now, a lot of folks are going to say that Christendom and Dawnland is more of a new thing than anything else. Well, Christendom got its start in Dawnland in the 8 between 100 YLs, though. Then it became unlawful. It didn't become lawful to be a Christendom until years later. Now, in Sailor Moon, Christendom has showed up in 2 or 3 or some ways. When Molly first meets up with a holy man at a burial ground, which is owned by a worship house, when she is still sad about Nephrite's death, and wants to talk to him about missing Nephrite and worried that she might forget him. And the holy man telling her that as long as you have him in your heart, you won't forget him, and he wouldn't want you to be sad forever. And then she goes on to say she doesn't have anyone, and he goes, that's not true, you got your friends, I saw you with them earlier, and it's at this time they could help, that you need them during your hard time. Now this holy man who had a rainbow hearse inside of him, and he was unaware of it his whole life, and Zoisite went after him and took the stone, the rainbow hearse, from him. And the fiend that was inside this rainbow hearse took over him. But after God and Jesus working through me healed him, it was God and Jesus did it, they just worked through me to heal him of the fiend that Lucifer had take over him. He then says that fighting is a bad thing, and we should do all to clean it from our lives. Now this is not the same way, this is not what is said in the Viz world. There are some little unlikenesses, but it's mostly said the same way. The next time Christendom ever shows up is by the 4th following, when Tiger's Eye goes after a holy woman who he happens to have a likeness of, like many other women, and believes that she's the one that Helios is in her dreams. Now, CLOVERWAY doesn't really come right out and shifts the words out what Tiger Eye said, but he does happen to go after her. Now before that, she was asking God and Jesus to let the children song team bring up beautiful songs and make sure that no one had any hateful throats too. She also talked about how, children are upcoming, and how sometimes they help our dreams come true. And this is where he thinks that she's the one. And after all the sailor fighters help beat Tiger's Eye, she later on ends up overseeing a wedlock that happened at the worship house afterwards. This is the same worship house that Artemis ends up, falling in love with, and thinking that would be a good worship house to get wedlocked in if cats could lawfully get wedlocked. And Luna took it the wrong way. Yeah, you're right, Sailor Moon. You're right, Serena. Christendom only shows up like 3 times, and Sailor Moon need be, yeah, really does 3 times if you count the holy woman who moonlights as a film or show overseer for the free lights and sailor stars. Now, at the end of the day, another worship tends to show itself, known as Shintoism. Now, a lot of Shintoists believe in sundry gods and goddesses. Some do, some don't. And they do tend to have a lot of oversights about what you can and cannot do at one of their worship houses, and we might get a lot of this wrong. Now, Shintoism seems to play out, at least in Sailor Moon's world, it seems to be that folks go to the Hino worship house to ask for wishes, to ask for blessings, either by Ray's grandfather or Ray herself. They seem to sell good luck stones, and Ray sometimes seems to, also seems to spend time at the Holy Fire or Great Fire. Also, Chad seems to work out there too. Now, Sailor Moon's world, and even Toei did this, so you can't guilt it on Deke. They don't really show all of the inner workings of the worship house. They don't show all the folks doing all the oversights that one has to follow to go in and out of these worship houses, though. We will make a belief that Serena and Amy and Lita and Mina and myself and others don't really, they show onlook for the other worship out there. I don't really think we follow these to a T. Now, even though I would believe all of us have onlook for other worships than our own worship, it is also known that Ray goes to a Christendom known as the TS Girls Learn Hall, which is ran by a Christendom worship house. So, even if she is a Shintoist, she happens to also be a Christian too. Now, I know there's some folks out there going to say that the worship house, the Shinto worship house, and Rei Hino came off of Naoko Takaguchi's time as working at one of these worship houses. And yes, that could be true, and most likely is true. Now, a lot of folks might say, well, what about all the other worships? What about all the other worships in Sailor Moon? And we also know that, that a lot of folks, that since a lot of folks out there have a lot of onlook for the Hinos, at least as far as their worship house goes, and sometimes Ray's grandfather, the head holy man, and I would guess owner of it at the time, sometimes says and does things that kind of besmirches the Hino kin name. And Deke, they play this off as him wanting to be friendly, around folks, and play stunts on them, and sometimes he might not know that he might be laughing at them instead of with them. Also, Chad happens to work at the worship house as a handyman, and sometimes Ray's grandfather believes that Chad being around is a good thing, because then Chad does some of the things that either Ray doesn't want to do or doesn't like to do as far as work at that worship house goes. Now, that's all I know about it, or at least all that the Deke world or the Toei world or the Viz world has shown us. And keep in mind, we do have onlook, and trust other folks in their worship. Even if their worships are not in Sailor Moon, we still have onlook for everyone and their right to worship and their freedom to worship. We have onlook for their worship the same way we hope they got onlook for our worship. Alright, what do you think about worship in Sailor Moon, or at least about Christendom and Shintoism in Sailor Moon? Do you think that we were right to talk about it? Do you think it plays anything in Sailor Moon's world? Or do you think it was only put in there because at the time those were the two big worships in Dawnland? Not to say there aren't others. Let us know what you think. I, Sailor Moon Serena, and I, Tuxedo Max, Evening Wear High, Darian, and I'll see you later.